Okay. Well, we're ready to start. Now, this afternoon I thought I would share with you hydrotherapy. Now, in other years, and I've shared with people hydrotherapy classes, I've actually had my buckets and my towels and everything there. But quite frankly, it is so time-consuming and it's such a big thing that I have to do. So I thought, look, I've shared this before and I'm using it as a PowerPoint. And I believe it is just as effective, and we're going to get through more because of the reason that I can share it over PowerPoint. Hydrotherapy is incredibly powerful. It's one of those most powerful modalities that we can use. The uses of herbs, juices, poultices, and hydrotherapy will do more for the recovery of the sick than many realise. People need instruction concerning the simple methods of treating the sick, methods that take the place of poisonous drugs. Now, we've talked so much about the New Start or the 8 principles of health, but one of them is water. Now, this law of health regarding water is not just water internally, it is also water externally. Is a law of health. So I'm talking to you about a law of health which is water. And how are we going to use? We're going to use water treatments on the outside of our body. And I can just share with you some of the stories as I go through them, okay? Water treatments wisely and skillfully given may be the means of saving many lives. But we must remember, once again, it is God who does the healing. Our part is to remain connected with him. Now, hydrotherapy, water treatments have been used for centuries. Hydrotherapy has more effect in the realm of pain relief than other substances. No other method is effective, safe and easy and free from side effects. And here over on the side of the panel, I just wanted to just share with you, on the bottom down there, I was doing hydrotherapy on a person who was in, we were doing one of the classes, just showing you the picture above. Now the one above there is a hydrotherapy treatment on Beryl. Some of you know Beryl, and Liz. Liz has been here. She's been in and out. Had to go away and pick up her husband, but that was Liz. And the top two ladies are known by someone. Who is? She's not here, is she? Ali. That's Ali's mother. Okay, and that's your auntie. And it's your auntie too. One from South Australia, I think. Okay, so that's them. Yeah, and look, they were just in their element. What I do is this is my home, and what we did in the home, we were just doing treatments. The one underneath it, we were showing how to do the ice massage. So we had groups of women doing the ice massage. And then the one above it, we had them that was the hot foot bath. Well, did they have the time of their life doing the hot foot bath. Yeah. Okay, so blood equals life. If you have any problem in any part of your body, you need fresh blood to the area. It is every life-giving element to relieve, repair and restore. Now, hydrotherapy rapidly moves fresh blood into the area treated and takes away the old blood. Now, that is simply why hydrotherapy works. Because every time you're going to get new fresh blood, let's say you're applying hot, you're putting a hot pack on, it's bringing blood to the area. But then you put cold on, it's forcing the blood away. But when you put the new hot pack on, which is normally about 3 minutes later, you're getting a new, because how long does it take for your blood to circulate through your body? Probably 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And so when you're doing it next, you're getting a new nutrition in your blood, new all that oxygen in your blood. And so when you put the ice on, it's pushing it away. And when it's pushing away all the wastes that are taking away. So it is an excellent, excellent way to treat any problem. Okay, now the benefits of water, by applying different temperatures of water to the skin in its different forms of hot, cold, ice and steam, and by different pressures will affect and send messages not only to the skin, but to the organs under the skin, and indirectly by means of a reflex response affects other organs as well. And your immune system stays elevated for up to 2 days once you stimulate your immune system. And I can remember we were doing classes here, and I think it was on you, Judy. Oh no, you were one of them, and you said you had doing it on your neck, wasn't it? I can't remember where it was, but no, it was a man. Okay, they were doing ice massage on their forearms. And would you believe the man who was doing the ice massage on the forearms, he says, I can't believe my knees are so much freer. He said, look, it was affecting his knees. So what I'm saying is that you can do ice massage, you can do treatments on certain parts of your body. Other parts will be affected by mere reflex action. So this part's related to that part, and there's charts with reflex places which are affected. But I was stunned because I didn't realise it had such an effect. There, on the forearm, had such effect on his knees. He said, look, they're just so much freer. And he came back and he went like this, I can't believe it. Okay, benefits of hydrotherapy. Increased blood flow, and what happens is it brings oxygen and nutrition. It will tone up the body. It will create better and equalised circulation. It detoxifies and gets rid of the body of any accumulated poisons, improves digestion, stimulates the immune system, and brings relief from pain. Now that's a huge one because you would be surprised how much pain relief you can get, and reduces stress. Equalises temperature, affects the skin and relaxes muscles, increases range of motion, stimulates a sluggish or inactive organ, calms their lungs, heart, stomach and endocrine system by stimulating nerve reflexes on the spinal cord, stimulates and soothes the entire nervous system and alkalizes the blood, which stimulates phagocytosis. Okay, so we have 300 trillion white blood cells formed and matured, ready to fight battles. They are on reserve at all times. On active duty are 60 trillion of these circulating in your bloodstream. There are a number in the energy which they attack an enemy can be stimulated by the simple remedies of hot and cold water applications, exercise, fresh air, sunshine, and proper rest and diet. Now, effects of hot and cold. Hot quiets and soothes the body, slowing down the activity of internal organs. Cold, in contrast, stimulates and invigorates, increasing internal activity. So what we're going to do is we're going to use hot on certain parts of the body and cold on certain parts of the body. Now, you stop and think, what does a fever do? You have a fever, your body heats up, sweats, destroys infection. So you're going to and this is what happens in your body naturally when you get a fever. Your T cells are stimulated, multiply, they become more active, get stronger and do their job more efficiently. Now, artificial fevers can do this too, but without the side effects, you get no washed out feelings. So we can actually perform and do an artificial fever over your entire body, or it could be localized. Let's say that you wanted to do it on your lower back. You can do it on your lower back, or you could do it on your shoulder, or you could do it on your back of your neck, or wherever on your body. Or you could do it on an arm or a leg or a hip or wherever you want it. You can create a local area where you're going to create something that's going to stimulate or simulate, I should say, an artificial fever. Okay, Okay, it increases white blood cells in peripheral blood. Chemical agents are released from white blood cells and your blood is less sticky. Blood flushes skin and it's purified. Wastes are eliminated for sweating and relieves congested organs. And it equalises pain and it relieves pain. Once again, just make sure you get that, because it's a very, very important thing to know that one of the best pain relieving things that we can do are water treatments. Stimulates a sluggish system or an inactive organ, increases phagocytosis and quickens pulse and respiration. Now, what are the different ways that you can apply water? You can apply them in hot and cold baths. So you can have a hot bath and then you can have a cold bath and then you can jump from one to the other. Absolutely brilliant. Some of the health clinics have hot bath and then a cold bath beside it. I don't have that. I've only just got one bath. So what I've got, personally, I've got a little bath, a little ice bath that I have. That's my ice bath. So I can have my hot in my tub and then I can have the little ice bath where I can step into. So that's how I can do this. Hot and cold showers, which is easy because you just need just the one shower. Hot fomentations. Now these are probably my favourite. Pain relief. Absolutely wonderful. I just love to train many people in this because it just is so, so good to have an army trained in hydrotherapy where they can go out and they can give pain relief to people because it works. Hot and cold compresses, heating compresses, cold compress, which is a cold compress covered, cold mitten friction, ice pack or ice massage or a steam bath. You need to be careful and cautious in all your treatments because you've got people who are very feeble or have low vitality or chilled. You have to be careful with them. You also have to be careful with children under 3. Take extreme care with insulin-dependent diabetics. They are less sensitive to heat. Heat increases the metabolism but does not increase oxygen to tissues. As a result, the imbalances cause cells to die from an oxygen starvation. So instead, use a compress to the lower abdomen and upper thighs. I'm quite cautious when I'm treating diabetic patients. I don't like to use... if I'm going to do water treatments, I'll make sure they're nowhere near as hot. You have to be careful. It is permissible to cautiously apply heat to young diabetic patients who have not developed peripheral neuropathy. But you don't do it as hot and cold. You just do it like as less hot and a little bit more tepid. You have to be effective. Your effectiveness is diminished by eating just before or after a treatment or by heavy use of sugar and oil or most drugs and alcohol. This is really important. You don't want to do treatments just after you have eaten. You remember years ago, and I don't know if they still tell you, but years ago when we were kids, we were told you were never allowed to go swimming after you ate lunch for at least 2 hours. We were told you'd die if you do that. They really tried to scare us. No, you can't. You'll drown if you do that. If you go in, you'll drown. So we just never did. But nowadays, anything goes, I think. But what I'm saying is that it does reduce the effectiveness because your blood is actually centered into your digestive tract, trying to digest the food. So it's not going to be used. It's not going to be as effective in your peripheral blood circulation in the arms. Okay, now my first one that I'm going to talk about is a hot foot bath. Now, what we need for a hot foot bath is obviously a dish down the bottom. Now, this dish is quite shallow. Since then, I bought some deeper dishes, they're buckets, which I bought from Aldi, and they're oval buckets, and they're about this high. And I really like them because you can get a higher you can take the water up higher on the calf, right? If you've only got a dish like this, this is all you use. So you put hot water in there, as hot as a person can handle. You have a kettle beside it with hot, freshly boiled water, because you'll need to top this up. Then you have ice water on the side, or you have, with this dipped in, the face washer is dipped in the ice water, and it's put on the head. Now, why do you do that? It means that you're forcing the blood away from the brain, and it's going right down to the soles, or right down to your feet. Now, what do you use this for? It's used for headache. You're absolutely right. This is the number one treatment for anyone with migraine. I've cured many people, a number of people with migraine using this method. I can just tell you, I had a lady in my class. She was sitting there, and she just went like this. She was sitting in the chair, and her friend next to her said, "Look, she's just coming down with a migraine. Just let her go." And she just, after the class was finished, I went up to her and I said, "Would you like me to do a hot foot bath?" And she sort of said, you know, she had a migraine. She wasn't too responsive. So I got her feet into the dish, and within probably about 25 minutes, she just said to me, "Wow, I've had migraines for 20 or 30 years." She says, "I have never, ever had a migraine where I've relieved it this way." And she told us later that she said when she started, it was maybe a 9 out of 10. And she said when it was finished, she said it was maybe a 2 out of 10. And she was able to go home, and she said sleep off that remainder of that headache. She said she has never, ever before slept off a migraine. So this is excellent for migraines. Another one it is excellent for is girls who have period pains. Absolutely essential that you start doing that. I've done this with my granddaughter. She came in one night. She was cramping, and she said to me, she said, "Nan," she said, she couldn't sleep. She was white. Now, I didn't put any ice on her head because she was so white anyhow on her face. She had no blood up there. And so I just gave her the foot bath, and within 25 minutes, she said, "Oh, Nan, thanks. I think I can go back to bed. Thanks a lot." So off she went back to bed and left me to clean up the mess. Okay, so what I'm saying is that it does work. It really does work. Another lady, she was a colleague of mine at work. She was a teacher, and she had pleurisy, and I said to her, "Do foot baths of a night time." She was recovering from pleurisy, and she did them every night for about a month. And the one night she didn't do them, she said she had incredible pain, so she knew that it was a difference when she was doing this. So it really works. Once again, why does it work? Well, it pulls blood away from your head, and it distributes them right down into your feet. Girls with period pain, what's happened is they've got blood congested in their abdomen. So what they've got to do is get rid of the blood and distribute that blood from their abdomen and take it down to their feet, and all of a sudden it takes the pressure off. It's really quite simple, and it's logic when you think of it like that. What happens is there is coagulation or clotting or whatever you want to call it in the abdomen, and that's what's causing the cramping. So you could do this. This you would do also for any chest congestion, any chest complaints. This one you would do as a precursor. It's probably the first treatment. First thing you would do as a treatment, just basic, is to know how to do a hot foot bath. And everyone needs to know and experience how to do a hot foot bath. It is so easy. Let's look at these two ladies here. Now can you see her?
Yeah, Auntie Joan. She's still alive.
Is she?
Yeah, 92. She's 92.
Yeah, they came to my home. And
they got a foot bath.
They got a foot bath. And they loved it. Yeah, look at them. Okay, so here are the reasons for the foot bath. congestive headaches, migraine, congestions in the eyes, earache, chest, pleurisy, pelvic cramps, prostate disorders, dysmenorrhea. For period pain, use ice over the stomach, not on the head. When sitting in bath, ice over the stomach. Okay, so some more reasons. Use as a preparation for other treatment. Warms the body and relaxes and comforts. It reduces fatigue. Use it for the common cold, sore throat, influenza, gallstones. Now, I was actually treating someone with gallstones, and it worked like a charm one time, but we went back another time and did it on the same person for gallstones, and it didn't work. So I don't know. I can't tell you why, but it definitely worked brilliantly that first time. She was just stoked. Renal colic and many other disorders. It relieves abdominal pain. Oh, I should say maybe it didn't work as strongly the second time. Maybe I'll just rephrase that. Now that is a hot foot bath. Now this one here is a contrast bath. Now you can use this contrast bath on your feet if you want to, or on your arm, or on your legs, or wherever. Bit hard to do it on the trunk of your body because you really can't put and immerse anything on the trunk of your body in water. Even your head, you really don't. You're not going to really immerse your head in the water. But you immerse body parts first in the hot water, then in ice water, using 2 separate buckets or baths. You can use buckets, you can use garbage bins, you can use washcloths. And once again, you have to be cautious with diabetics. Now, if you had sinus, someone asked me about sinus, this would be one of the better ones for sinus. You have 2 bowls, and usually I do it near the tap where I'm going to allow that I can add hot water to it. But I've got hot water in one, as hot as I can handle it, and ice water in the other. Now, I've got a face washer in the ice one, and then I've got a separate face washer in the hot one. So I put the face washer on the hot, and then I put that down, and then I go over to the cold, and I put the face washer on the cold. Now, usually you do 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold, backwards and forwards. Finishing on a cold. Always finishing on a cold. So you 3 minutes hot, put it back, and you get the different one, the different cloth. Now that is brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, so you use it as localized infections, and you could add charcoal to water. You could use anything in your water. It's good for muscle or joint pains, arthritis, any swelling of a body part due to fluid retention, blood vessel disease of the veins by artery or arteries to the leg and feet, diabetics, it improves their circulation. Don't use hot water or ice water. Use less contrast in your temperature. And you can use it for leg ulcers, for sinuses. Now, I had my son's friend, he was a football player, and he decided he wanted to prolong his football career. And so he had knees that were giving him so much problem. So what he used to do every morning before the football match, he would have, and had 2 buckets, I'll rephrase that, garbage cans, and he'd fill them with hot water and then cold water. And so he'd step in the garbage cans, and he'd be in the hot one and then in the cold one, then back in the hot and then back into the cold. And when you're doing that, you really need to stay near the hot water tap, because the jumping backwards and forwards will stop you. You will lose the heat out of the water very quickly. So you can do that one. So you use it for leg ulcers and sinuses, and for that's it. Now you can do exactly the same thing, and you can use, and you call it a sitz bath. Now, this is where you're sitting in the bath. Now, I mean, I don't think anybody is that slender who's sitting so nicely in the bath like that. I actually went into Bunnings and I bought 2 black tubs. They're about this big and about that wide and about this long, and about that deep. And you've got to make sure you would fit into them. So you try them for size in Bunnings. Make sure your bottom will fit in it, because you want to make sure you get the right size. And we use them as a sitz bath. So we'd put them in the bathroom on the floor, so they'd be hot in one and ice in other. Now, once again, you could even put herbs in there. You could put maybe chamomile in there. You know, Peter always tells the story when he was always telling this story, that when he was a young boy, he had boils. And his grandmother was a herbalist, a self-taught herbalist. She was just like she was a very, not trained or anything, but she knew so much about herbs. And she saw him boils, and she says, okay, he has to have a bath. So she went out and they got armfuls of chamomile flowers growing out in the field, and they brought these chamomile flowers and they brought them and they threw them in the bathtub in the water, and they just soaked them and steeped them like you would tea. And then they lifted out the chamomile, and he said some of the leaves and the flowers were still in there, but he sat in there, and as he sat in that chamomile bath, he said, as he was there, all of these boils all over his body were just popping out in the water, and all of the pus was popping out everywhere. So he said after that was finished, he sat in there for a while, then his grandmother did it the second time. Okay, the first time got most of it out, and to make sure it was all out, he had to do it the second time. So, and he said he got out and he says he smelt like a chamomile bush. You know, he said it was, but you know he loved it because he said boils are extremely painful. And so this is what he had he remembers this from Germany. So what we did is when we were doing the sitz bath, we were putting chamomile, I think we put calendula in it too. We've done lots of things in there. We've done many crazy things in our treatments and all that sort of thing. But what you do is you sit you have your feet in a separate bath or a tub. Your feet go separately than where your bottom is. And your waist is out and your knees are out. Now, and your feet is 1 degree or 2 degrees Fahrenheit hotter. So your feet are a little bit hotter than your other bath, your bottom. But can I tell you, I'm not terribly fussy on that, and it still tends to work. But it's good for dysmenorrhea, which are painful menstruation. It's excellent for hemorrhoids and fissures. And if anybody has a hemorrhoid and fissure, they know that they're alive. They are the most painful things out, as you know, if you have had them. Bladder and prostate problems or inflammation, folliculitis and other skin problems in perineal area or on the buttocks, abnormal vaginal discharge, inflammation of the ovaries, pelvic inflammatory disease, cellulitis, postpartum perineal care, atonic constipation or loss of muscle tone. Now this one's really interesting because Barbara O'Neill told me that she had a young boy who was 16 and he was going to school and he had lost the muscle tone in his anus. Okay? And she said that he went at school and in front of all his friends, he messed his pants. And he was just devastated. So his mother sent him to Barbara, and she said, what can you do? So Barbara did this. She said every day, you don't miss a day. Once you started, you don't miss a day. For 1 month, and at the end of 1 month, he was fine. Everything came back. All that muscle tone came back. So really interesting. So something like you'd think you could never, how could you tighten up a muscle in that area like that quickly? But it did happen. Another woman, no, that was a different one. I'll go on to this one first. Ice massage, acutely painful joints, muscles or infections. That means that comes from any strain, sprain, spasms, inflammation or muscle tissue. Any acute back or neck pain, relieves pain, swelling, congestion, any injury, decreases blood flow, decreases deep tissue bleeding, decreases nerve responses, and it's good for sprains, contusions, soft tissues injuries. It's used for arthritis and bursitis, mastitis in painful breasts, mumps or swollen glands, lymphatics in groin, increased heart rate, shallow breathing, your fever. It's to stimulate a reflex reaction, for example, ice on the head with a foot bath, increase heart rate. And this is how you do it. Now, all of these are in your book under the hydrotherapy section. First of all, you freeze some ice. I normally freeze it, and you used to be able to buy styrofoam cups, which were excellent. Now, you can't buy styrofoam anymore. But you need to freeze it, and you've got to hold it somehow because it'll get pretty cold in your hand. And you rub it over the area. But as you can see here, what we've done is you put a towel around there, because that towel actually will, as your body heat will be melting that ice in the hand, and it will be running and it'll be dripping down everywhere because the body heat. So you need to have a towel around there. And so Lisa's doing it on Beryl. And she had, at this stage, she had a bit of a frozen shoulder. And so she was trying it on the frozen shoulder. First of all, you do it for cold. Now, you keep doing it. It's just you do it for 10 to 15 minutes, but it goes through these phases. First of all, it's cold, where you feel it cold. Your blood flows decreased, and that lasts for 2 to 3 minutes. Then the next sensation, you feel it starts to burn, which lasts for another 4 minutes. Then you go to an aching short duration, and you start to see pink, and then it feels numb, and you keep going. When stage 4 is reached, the treatment is terminated, and that's it. Now, that's the ice massage. When I was telling you a little bit ago about this man who was they were ice massaging his forearm, and all of a sudden his knees are released. Amazing, just amazing. So this is excellent. A lot of people have told me this is great for frozen shoulder. And what I like about this is you can get somebody to rub it into you. It's like if you wanted it, I think it's not more effective, but it's a different way instead of getting somebody to massage you. Now, if you had a massage, you would have to pay for a massage or get somebody to massage you. As a therapist, you've got to have somebody who's skillful. But you can have some kid even just rubbing you around there. They can manage it. So that anybody can rub your just a bit of ice around, and as long as you get something over the hand where it gets cold on the person who's holding the ice. That's why those styrofoam cups were quite good, because you didn't feel the cold, but you can't buy them anymore. So that is an excellent treatment too, and don't minimise that. Remember, these are all in your books. So this is how you do. This is ice massage, and generally I would put ice massage on things like shoulders or anywhere area like that. Hot and cold showers. Well, that's simple, isn't it? All you've got to do is stand under the shower. But I usually what I do is when I'm doing this, I'll get in the shower, and you just usually soap yourself up and wash yourself or whatever you're doing. Then after you finish, you can direct your water to a specific area. Let's say you've got a problem with your liver. You direct it to your liver area. You've got a problem with your lower back. Direct it to your lower back or your shoulder or wherever. This is where you start directing this water from your shower. So you direct the shower to specific areas, example, liver, thyroid, back or your neck, and you use it for any inflammation. It relieves fatigue, and you can actually use this treatment for depression. You've heard about the shock treatments that people who are depressed, they go in. Well, do you know you can do a natural shock treatment by getting somebody to stand in the hot shower and then just turning it onto ice. And they go, I can't stand it. Yeah. There's not a lot of people who've got... Actually, you'd be surprised how many people are chicken and they think this is the worst thing that's ever happened in their life. Recently, when I was in America, we went to a hot springs and there was a really large... There was probably about the size of this stage, this pool that was hot. And there was an equally sized large pool that was cold. And there was a lot of people there, but we were going and sitting in the hot, then could go over and jump in the cold. Well, there was a teenage girl there. She looked about 18. She could not get into the cold. She'd get as far as her ankle. And she said, oh, that's too cold. I can't get into there. And we coaxed her in, and finally we got her right in. And one of the women said to her, if you think that this is the hardest thing in your life, that you're going to come and oh yes, it's too hard, I can't do this. You're going to have a lot more things harder in your life than standing in hot, cold water. And then one of the women says, you don't know. She said, you'll remember this when you have a baby. Yes, okay. So what I'm saying is that many people are they just can't stand under there. But, you know, there is a trick to it. To start, if you can't handle the cold water, get the hot water on you, then turn the cold water on and leave it only maybe for 2 or 3 seconds. Then go back to the hot that you were on. Maybe stand under there maybe about 10 seconds and then go back to the ice again or the cold again. Now this time maybe do it 5 or 10 seconds. Then go back again and then do it 3, 4, 5 times, going backwards and forwards, and each time you will increase it. Then all of a sudden you'll be able to stand under there for 30 seconds and it won't seem as near problematic. Acute nervous irritability or excitability, for example, a panic attack. Use it first sign of a cold, flu or sore throat. And if you feel yourself coming down with a flu, get in a hot and cold contrast shower. What it does, it brings blood to the area and then all of a sudden hits the cold and it goes... Your blood is forced back inside, internally. Then once again, brings the blood area. Remember, it's bringing the blood in and out of the area. And that is going to bring so much healing. A daily cool bath. In the winter, the daily cool bath trains the skin to react promptly and lessen the chance of taking a chill. This stimulates the thyroid to normal activity. It keeps the bone marrow functioning properly. It strengthens, preventing getting colds, and physical and moral development is strengthened. Do you know, I was very interested in hearing Sehm was talking about how his mother does these cold baths. And I want to read you a little story here. It says, my special grandmother, and this was written in the early 1900s. Another thing that grandmother had us do was take a cold bath each morning. She did this faithfully. I recall amusingly the many times I would sit on the edge of a bathtub trying to muster up enough nerve to plunge into the icy water. After doing so, any sleepiness that I had was gone. Throughout the day, entire day, I felt refreshed. It was grandmother's policy to take a warm bath at night to relax her and the cold bath in the morning. She felt that if our systems could take it, we should do it. But if they could not, the practice was not certainly mandatory. And this was written by in a book called My Special Grandmother by Ellen White's granddaughter, Evelyn Grace White Jacks. Can you believe that? A daily cold bath each morning. Which leads me to my next one, is what I've bought one of these, and I find it quite invigorating. Quite invigorating. And it's easy because though it's got like poles down the side, and it's just like rubberized pool sort of material, and around the top it's just a blow-up tube that you just blow up, and it holds its shape, and it's got a little tap down the bottom, and it's not that dear. When I'm saying not that dear, I think I paid about $60 or $70 or something like for it. And I use that after I have a sauna, and I love it. I've got a little steam sauna. I haven't put it up for a while, I've got to admit. I haven't put it up this year yet. But this is what I love doing. Eases sore and aching muscles, helps your central nervous system sleep better. It lifts mood and mental status, limits the inflammatory response, decreases the effect of heat and humidity, lowers body core temperature, trains your vagus nerve and parasympathetic nervous system, and helps offset stress. Now, there's a lot of the fitness places around town now that have cold baths in there, ice baths. It's something quite trendy, but I actually love it. I've got this dream. I think I'd like to do it before I die. I'd like to go for a place where I could have a steam sauna and then go out and roll in the snow. Yeah, that's my sort of, on my bucket list. I reckon it'd be great to do that. Because Peter said that when he was a little boy, because he lived in Germany, he said that's what they did. They would go in and they would, in their bathroom, and the girls were banned. The girls were inside, and then later on the girls could come out and the boys were inside, and there was to be no peeking. And the girls, but he said when he'd go in there and he'd be in the bath and the boys were all in the bathtub, but they'd be in there, and then they'd race outside and they'd jump in the snow. Remember, this is Germany. And it was just, he said he just loved it. And I sort of think to myself, I'd love to do that. Okay, steam bath. And you can take this lying or sitting down. To increase your body temperature and metabolism, it has a sedative effect after 15 to 20 minutes. To induce sweating, increase pulse rate, increases blood pressure and blood flow to the skin, increases the number of white blood cells circulating in the blood. Used for rheumatoid arthritis and low blood pressure at the onset of a cold or influenza. Now, this is a little diagram of somebody, if you didn't even have a steam bath, you can make your own steam bath by getting you've got to get quite a large blanket. But can you see how somebody sits underneath that and you can make a tent around you with a large, it has to be like a queen size blanket, and you put a kettle underneath there, or you could use an electric frying pan. We did this with electric frying pan. We did this at Marilyn's place. One of the women who were doing the cooking out there, she had a house with a swimming pool in it. So we did this on her back veranda, and we would have these, the whole group of us were there, we were learning how to do this, and as we just to get the cold, we'd just go out and jump in the pool. It was the middle of winter too, it was fantastic. But here it is. These, you can buy these. That's the one like I've got. This is a steam tent in the middle. The one you can buy these online. But these are steam. There's a different one you can actually buy infrared too, which is fine. Sometimes you might like infrared. Infrared's good, but it's a little bit different. But steam is also good. It's a little bit different. I actually like the steam, but I like infrared too. So now, heating compresses. You use for pain, infection, inflammation, swelling, cough and more. Now this is the heating compress, is an application of a cold, wet cloth or compress, then covered. And there is initial cooling which lasts for about 5 minutes, followed by a warming up and an increased circulation. The compress applied cold soon heats up through the reaction of the body against the cold, and the trapped heat increases the temperature of the tissues. Now you can use this on the throat. So you can just use a thin piece of cloth around the throat. Cold, wet cloth. I would put maybe 1 or 2 thicknesses of like sheet material around your neck. You put a little bit of plastic over that and you put a scarf around it. And you put that on your throat, it'll get rid of any sore throat. What happens is the moment your cold goes on there, blood, there's a signal to your body to send blood to the area. It sends blood to the area and the blood does all the healing because it brings all the nutrients and gets rid of all the rubbish in your body. So you can put it on the throat. for any sore throats or any problems, laryngitis or whatever. You can put it on the chest if you're going to have coughs. You just make a larger square cloth and you put it on there. You cover it with plastic and then you put plenty of blankets or clothes or whatever on there to warm it up. It needs to warm up. You can put it on your abdomen. Okay, this is you can apply for pain, infection, for sedation, for chronic active hepatitis, backache, ulcerative colitis, for chronic indigestion, for chronic stomach problems, nausea and vomiting. Now, this probably is one of the safest things to use for women who have got morning sickness. Nothing else. Some people can get extremely sick with morning sickness. This is ideal for them.
What if you put vinegar? Mum used to put vinegar.
Yes, you could do that. Yeah.
Tonsillitis.
Yes, you could put vinegar as well on your cloth. I know there was one lady, she was telling me that she made her own apple cider vinegar, and she said, she was a massage therapist, she said, you cannot believe the difference that made to her patients. And she said, there is a difference between apple cider vinegar from the shop than my own homemade one that somebody from Myrtleford, one of the older people from Myrtleford taught her. Yeah. Okay, so different applications. You can do chronic congestion of the liver. You can do it over the liver area. You can do it on a knee or elbow. You can do it on a feet. Now, this is what I used often. I've done this many, many times on my feet for insomnia. You've got insomnia? I use thin, wet socks. As a matter of fact, I know if I'm going to bed and if there's certain times I think, you know what, I'm not going to fall asleep here. So what I do is I get up and I know where my socks are. I know I don't have to hunt around looking for them because I know they're in my bottom drawer on my bedside table. And so I've got thin socks there. I go out, I wet them. I've got plastic bags to put over them, and then I've got thick socks to go over them. Okay, I go back to bed, and you know what? There are a number of times that I've fallen asleep straight after this, but not every time. But if I don't, I wake up and I don't have that hangover feeling, like you would if you've never slept all night. You ever had that? You wake up and you feel like as thick as, your head's so thick. So this is ideal. And you wake up your circulation has changed and distributed differently. Okay, you can do it over your entire body. Now, what is this called? Okay, this is good. Now, this is a wet sheet treatment, we call it, or a wet sheet wrap. It eliminates toxins, pulls toxins out of your body. It's great for anybody with nicotine. It's great. Something I can remember being told, what Barbara was telling me when they were doing them up at Living Valley Springs, she said, you'd get people who are cigarette smokers, your sheets would be stained with a yellowy stain. Nicotine would be coming out through their skin. She said when she was doing it with the Agent Orange from young soldiers coming back from Vietnam, there was an orangish tint to the sheets. And one fellow, I knew him, and he told me, he said to me, when I did it, there was a purplish tint come out. So can you see that this and I'm not saying that every single time you're going to get a colour on the sheet, because I did it on a lady who had nicotine, and she was most disappointed that she didn't see any yellow stains on the sheets. But it didn't. Okay, so you do that. Mental illness. Now, this is very good for people who are depressed. Addictions, huge for addictions. We were doing a class down at Highwood, and I think you were there, Wendy, weren't you? And that man, they did the treatments on him because he and his wife were both addicted to marijuana. You remember that? Okay, and what they did, and they took him over and they did some treatments on him, and he came back and he says, I cannot believe I have never had such an effect. After marijuana, he just lost his, you know how they have cravings and they want more and that sort of thing. He said he felt so good after it. I don't know whatever ever happened to them, but that was the effect of initially. Insomnia, delirium, alcoholism, gout, bronchitis, common cold, influenza and fevers. And you can keep replacing the wet sheet once it starts to warm up to bring the patient out of a fever. Repeat until the fever is broken, and you have it's a 1 to 2 hour fever treatment. I did it on a woman who was wanted. She was addicted to cigarettes, and she came to me and she said to me, I'd like to get off cigarettes. And I said, how long will you give me? She said, 2 days. I said, okay, 2 days. And I thought, what will I do? So I put her on a juice fast for 2 days, only juices. And as well, in the morning, we did in the morning, we did two separate treatments. We did a bath, a fever bath in the morning, followed by a wet sheet treatment. And in the afternoon, she did a steam bath, followed by a cold shower. 2 days later, she said to me, I can't believe this. She said, I don't feel any withdrawal. She was completely off cigarettes. And it was that simple. She said she knows a secret, though. She says, when you get off cigarettes, is make yourself as hungry as you can, and you don't miss the cigarettes, you miss the food. Yeah. No, she found it quite easy to get off. So you can keep replacing the wet sheet. Okay, so this is so I was using that on her, and there was someone else I was doing it on. Somebody who had depression, did it on them to help them as it comes out. And what they do, and it really helps heaps. Okay, heating trunk pack. This is also called a moist abdominal bandage or a wet girdle. So you're just putting the wet around their trunk, right? And you apply it over the stomach and the intestinal area, and it promotes gastric secretions, chronic congestion of the liver, indigestion, insomnia, constipation, nausea, which is once again your morning sickness, or your flatulence. And this is generally worn at night, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so your cold, wet pack, your best way to increase your blood circulation to your body. When your blood is circulated, toxins accumulate in the body, and different organs are also circulated. They start leaving their place and are finally eliminated with the help of the enema. When the toxins are out, all diseases are automatically cured. And that's one thing I just read there, and it just prompted my mind, because I didn't even talk to you about the enema. You have to really make sure that people's bowels are open. And remember Sehm telling us that about when he was doing the treatments too? You have to watch for that. But the benefits of the wet pack increases blood circulation, a powerful way to detox, and it's a simple way. It's not hard. It relieves acidity, constipation, stomach pain, period pain, colitis, tones up stomach and gets rid of excess fat. When applied to the forehead, it helps rid headaches and migraines. When applied to the neck, it helps get rid of thyroid problems. Isn't that amazing? So you could put that on your neck overnight. I don't know. I'm only reading what I'm just reading there. But if anybody's got any thyroid problems, try it. So you can see how you put it around the neck. Yeah, and try it. Okay, this wet pack was tried 200 years ago. This is what people used to heal. Apply every day for 30 minutes each time. You can apply it and continue with other tasks. You can do it twice daily for 3 months, then once a week, but don't do it when the body is cold. The pack can smell when removed, so launder and use it again. So you can actually, when it says don't do this when body is cold, you have to be aware that a lot of the treatments you really need to have the body warm to do it. And so the best way to warm it up is to have a hot shower before you do it. And if that's not possible, just do a hot foot bath. Now this is a similar pack. This is a heating chest pack. So where you have wet cotton sheeting wrapped around the chest, then covered, used for bronchial and respiratory colds that hang on. influenza, pleurisy, whooping cough, croup, asthma and similar conditions. Okay, this one you must have warm feet to begin with, and I told you a little while ago, but this is exactly what I've done for insomnia, for chest conditions, colds, headaches or period pains. Once again, you just do your wet socks, you put a little bit, I cover them with I've got plastic bags ready there and then, and I just pop them over the wet socks. Then I've got really thick socks that are larger than my under socks, and I bring them on, pull them on. Now this next one is an illustration describing of the wet sheet pack. Then this is how you fold that sheet over it, and they look like a bit like a mummy after they put it on. This here is how somebody is doing a wet sheet pack. I'll just let this play because it's quite interesting as you go through there. Okay, so you start off, you make sure the underbed is, and if you're going to do it on your bed, you've got to put a plastic sheet down first, because not everybody's got a massage bed to do it on. So if you want to do it on your bed, have a plastic lined sheet or something that goes under there. So you're lying on a cold, wet sheet, and it's wet and it's cold, and it says nude is best. And that's good, because the more skin that's covered with the wet sheet, the better it is. And it says make sure you go to the toilet first, which is true. Once I said to somebody, you know, don't get up if you've got to go to the toilet, that's all right. Well, I regretted it because they actually did it then, and guess who had to wash everything? So I said make sure, now you go to the toilet first. Okay, so what they're doing is, and this sheet that she's wrapping around is wet. It's cold and wet. And so just making the person comfortable and then wrapping that other sheet over them, and it's cold. And tucking it in, well, so there should be, and actually I've tried this and I'm thinking if you want to do it by yourself, and I've worked a way out, I reckon you could do it with thin cotton pajamas. You do it yourself. You just put on your wet pajamas, wet thin cotton pajamas. That's my logic. And I think it would work quite well. Then you put a blanket over and you really tuck them in well, and you put another blanket over the top, and you get them to get very, very, very hot. And you cover them maybe for 1 to 2 hours, and they will be so relaxed generally, but not always. You have to, and you've got to keep watching them all the time. Sometimes they'll fall asleep, which is all right, but you've got to come in, because there's nothing worse to be wrapped up like this and your nose starts to itch. And you've got nobody there to scratch your nose. And how do you scratch your nose when you've got your arms all in there? And so this is the treatment of choice for somebody who is coming out of any drug addiction. This is what you do. So it's going to bring out those drugs through the skin, just like with alcohol, with cigarettes, anything. So this is the treatment of choice. And what they're doing is just making sure that no air escapes around the neckline. And sometimes what I do is put a hot water bottle on their feet. That speeds that up. Clients need to be able to heat up. You need to make sure that they're going to get hot. If they're not getting hot, if they're staying quite cold, it's not good. They have to be heating up. That's why they have to be warm before you start. Fever, for a fever, you're doing 15 to 20, anxiety for whatever it was, and for any drug. So you've got limits there. You know that there is, for different treatments, you take them out earlier or let them in there longer. This is what they used to do years and years ago for so many treatments. Okay, so ways to do it yourself. You wear a well wrung out wet shirt or wet long gown and cover well with lots of blankets for 1 to 2 hours. I've got another book at home which is water cures, and this was written many, many, many years ago. I think it was in the 1800s, and it shows some of the water cures that they were doing. And this is the wet shirt wrap. And some of them are just fantastic. It's like a facsimile, it's like an old printing. You see these old diagrams in the book. It's quite interesting. Lots of beautiful treatments in there. I have a real fascination and an interest in hydrotherapy because I believe it is so powerful. Now, there's something called a variation, which is a bicarb wrap. And this is the one that we did on Wendy. How often? We did this every day for a week. Okay, so what you do is you place, this is an excellent one to treat anybody with cancer. You place 6 cups of sodium bicarb in a large bucket with 1/2 to 3/4 a cup of lemon juice. You add 5.5 litres of filtered boiling water, mix well with a wooden spoon, and it will fizz up. You have to use rubber gloves because this is hot. You're dipping your hands in hot boiling water. You place your towels in this water and apply on your trunk, then on your arms and your legs. Cover with garbage bags and wrap patient well. Leave for 1 or 2 or 4 hours, and then just have a warm shower to finish. Now, the reason for this is to cancer patients to detoxify your body or to alkalize your body. So that's a bicarb wrap. And so you will see, wait a bit, this one here. No, I didn't do it. Let me just go back. I think it just comes on itself. Okay, so this is the bicarb wrap, or it's called the lemon wrap. So they're using baking soda or bicarbonate of soda, lemon, and keep your client warm during the treatment, and this is what you need to be doing. So you've got enough towels, you've got 5-gallon buckets, your 6 to 7 large towels, you've got a massage table or a bed covered with a plastic sheet, and then you've got some warm blankets to go over, and you've got bags, and you've got baking soda, cup of fresh lemon juice, some hot water, and a thick pair of rubber gloves. And you mix your hot water and your bicarb with soda, and it starts fizzing, and you stir it. And what happens then? It's very hot, so you're placing your towels in there, and you're just hand wringing them out. And then you're laying one down over the bed, and you're getting your patient to lie on that towel, and then you're bringing it up over the body. And obviously it's best if they have either no clothes on, or if you're working on some people, you just use briefs or something to cover what you can cover. But now we're putting one separate towel on the leg, and each leg has a garbage bag that goes over, and you've got to work as fast as you can because this is hot, very hot. But you've got to allow it to cool a little bit. You wave it and you shake it a little bit to make sure it cools down, because it can be hot, but can't burn the patient obviously. So you put a different one on each arm and each leg, and then you put a plastic bag over the arm and your leg. And then you put sheets over, and you wrap them like a mummy, and this is amazing, this one. Super alkalizes your body. And you just keep wrapping them with towels and blankets. Now, the one downside of doing hydrotherapy with towels is that you have a lot of wet towels and you've got a lot of washing to do. That's a downside of it, but it really works. Then he'd get up, and then he would have a shower to finish off. Now, a salt glow is, this treatment uses salt and friction over the surface of the skin until the skin glows with a fresh supply of new blood. And it's so simple. Can you believe it? Place your patient's feet in a tub or bath, of hot water. Vigorously rub the salt or Epsom salts over the entire body surface and rinse, and that's it. It gives you a mild inferior, it lowers blood pressure, stimulates circulation, increases perspiration, increases nerve activity, and it can reduce heat if you add a little bit of peppermint oil. Now this is an interesting one because Peter and I used to do this one. I went to Bunnings and I bought this tub. It was about this round and about that deep. I think it's about 80 litres or something like that. And I would put it outside our bedroom door. And I'd fill it up, and I used to only do this in the winter. I don't bother about doing it in the summer because the winter it's not cold enough. In the summer it's not cold enough, it gets too hot. But I would go out there, and this water in that dish is cold, very cold. I took it, I think it was like, sometimes it was like 6 degrees or whatever it was, you know. Start with a 1-minute walk and work up to a 5-minute walk. Walk in the cold water that is up to the knee. So I just go out there and I just walk in this water, up and down on the same spot, walking like that. Okay, and this is cold water. It's going up, it's about up to just below, under my knees, and I'm just walking in there, and it's cold. Ooh, Peter's used to say, his used to be aching on him. And I would say, come on, it would be a bit of a game with us because I'd say, I can last longer than you. And he'd try his hardest to outgo me, but he could never do it. I could handle it longer than he could. And then I'd get out. And actually I got to the stage where we had a egg timer given to us. Someone gave us an egg timer, and the sand going through it. So I used to have that there, right there near me. And just as soon as the egg timer, that was long enough. I figured I think it was 2 minutes. And so I'd go inside. Then I would dry my feet, because this was just outside our bedroom door. I'd dry my feet, and then I'd put some nice socks on and jump into bed. And you sleep like a baby. Similar, I said to I was saying to you, go out and walk around on the. This is like a similar treatment. It's excellent. It strengthens the system, activates the kidneys, the bowels, the bladder, facilitates breathing and eliminates flatulence, insomnia, aids in recovery after illness, restores health, creates tone, overcomes poor circulation and creates new circulation patterns. And you can use it on your hands as well if you want to. You need to have a warm body to do it. You don't do it if you're cold. And this is the one I talked to you about, wet grass walking. By taking your shoes and socks off and walking in the wet grass grounds our body, and when we touch the earth, we get rid of excess electrical energy we generate. Some people never walk on the bare ground or grass. It's great to walk on the earth each day. Avoid rubber-soled shoes, and it's great for insomnia. Once again, you can't be cold when you do it. So you can't be just, I'm so cold. You've got to make sure you've got heat in your body and your feet are quite warm before you start. Now, I've never thought to bring it, and I've got these at home. I've got all sorts of hot water bottles now. I've gone crazy with hot water bottles. I've got that many of them. I've got big ones, I've got little ones. I've got those heat packs, but I find them pretty useless. They don't last long enough for me. I bought this long, thin one because I'm actually planned, and I've used it down the spine, right down the spine. That was bought specifically for that one. But now I've also found one, and I found it in the China shop out in Lavington, that China shop that's there, that they've got all heaps of interesting stuff in there. They've got a horseshoe-shaped hot water bottle, and you can bring it up around your neck. And I thought, this is interesting, and guess what? I bought it. Yeah, and see those they're ice caps, you fill it, that's a screw top on it. I've got one of them here. If I'll just grab it out of my tub. Excuse me, I've got my tub in under here, I know that. No, it's the other one. This one. Here it is. These here, see, these are, that's a screw top. You fill them up with ice. That's like rubberized. And you've put ice in there, you screw them on, and that's your ice cap or whatever. You got ice somewhere. I did it on someone who had depression, and they did, the thing for depression is ice on one side and heat on the other. Well, you used a hot water bottle on the forehead, and then you'd swap it. Ice, then the hot water bottle on the forehead, then the hot water bottle at the nape of the neck. So that's the way that you could do it for depression. But these are excellent, and I went online and I bought these. These are not that expensive. And I found them invaluable. I was doing loads of treatment. I've done loads of treatments with these. Because ice sort of falls everywhere. How do you keep it on the head? So I just figured, well, I'd use these. Okay, hot and cold. Okay, use over any area that needs fresh blood. Use over kidneys, over liver, over spine. For increased blood flow to your head, your depression, use hot and cold on your forehead, cold at the back of the neck, or 3 minutes, then reverse. I just told you that that's for depression. Now, and that's an interesting one because once you do it down the spine, that is very good for insomnia, down the spine. Yes?
What was that called, the one you put the ice in? Was that an ice bag?
Yeah, this is an ice bag. Yeah, that's an ice bag. You can go online, you can just find ice bag. It's called Body Ice Recovery. This is this particular one. But you can buy any of them. There's different sizes. This is the largest, and I think it's measured that way. It's so many centimetres from there to there. There is a shorter one, this one here. I've got 3 blue ones, and I didn't grab the blue ones, but this one's a different colour. But that's a shorter one, see? It's not as big. And then I've got a very small one as well. I tend to use the bigger ones. More so because what I was using them in treatments, and they were putting on the head. Because they're ideal to go on the head for your treatment, because I'd have a couple of them on the head. Now, hot and cold fomentations. I don't know why it's flicked off. Hot and cold fomentations. Here. Use over any area that needs fresh blood, to use the kidneys, liver, spine. You can use, I just said that one, didn't I? Hot and cold fermentations. I'm up to this one. Hot and cold fermentations are used to treat specific target areas, including those hard-to-reach areas such as your neck, shoulder, kidneys, back, face, chest, stomach, liver and colon. I would say that this is the most common treatment that I do. I would love people to know how to do it. If we knew how to do it, this is the treatment that you do for many people on lower back pain. And you don't know how many people have got up off my massage table and said, "Oh, that feels good. I feel the best that I've felt for years." We had a class one day down at we were in a different church hall. We were down in the River Community Church. And Susan was over at the supermarket, and she found a fella over there who was complaining on the crook back. So she brought him over and she says, "Oh, here's somebody we can do our treatment on." And he got down and he'd had a laminectomy, which is an operation to fuse bones in your spine. And so we got him on the table and I said, "Okay, we're going to do a hot treatment off." And he got off the table and he says, "That's the best my back has felt in years." And I had all these people there who were hearing that, and I know that this is exactly what happens. What happens is these are hot towels, very, very hot towels. And I've got a cold towel in between the skin and that hot towel. And then I usually put another towel over the top of it. I don't think I have one here on this one. But what it happens to that just penetrates, and that moist heat penetrates deeply inside of that person and brings so much blood to the area. Then you take that off and you put on ice, an ice pack. And then you take the ice pack off after 30 seconds, and you put a fresh hot fomentation on. That just works wonders. Okay, so you do moist heat. It is a moist heat or poultice or fomentation made penetrate the tissues and muscles to a depth of 20 millimeters to 75 millimeters. Dry heat does not penetrate as deeply. And you need to have a good supply of towels. You need to have ice. I actually use a microwave. Now, I don't use a microwave for cooking, but I do have a microwave to heat up my hot packs. I tell you what, it saves so much effort. Otherwise, you've got to do them the old hand way by dipping them in water and wringing them out. I don't know if you've ever done that, Shirley, with water and wringing them out. Pardon? It's messy. I know it is. So you remember doing it like that? Yeah, you haven't done a lot of it. I only did it a few times, and I thought, I'm not going to do this again. So that's why I went out and I bought a microwave. And as I said, I don't cook in the microwave, but I certainly use them for hot packs because they are excellent. Excellent. Okay, so what does it do? It relieves pain, it relieves muscle tension, stimulates blood circulation, relieves insomnia. You do it along the spine, relieves internal congestion. And once again, you do 3 to 5 minutes of hot, 30 seconds of cold, and then it relieves muscle spasms, relieves pains in nerves, joints and internal organs, increases sweating and elimination of waste, increases the white blood cells of circulation. So that is excellent. I love those. And this is an alternate hot and cold to the spine. It's a strong stimulant and tonic, improves circulation, increases muscular tone, stimulates nerve action. Okay, very interesting with this one, because I read in a history book where Ellen White was very close to death one time, and Dr. Kellogg and some of his assistants treated Ellen White with spinal fomentations, and she was healed. So there's power in these. So using a lot of things along your spine, doing your fomentations, doing your treatments along the spine. Okay, and the last one I think I'm going to talk to you about is a fever bath. Okay, what is a fever bath? Well, you put the person in a bath, in a hot bath. And generally the bath water would be about 42 to 44. It's pretty hot. Now, this is a treatment for cancer. And when I was treating Peter, I did many of these. I think every time I did them, I wrote them down. I've got a book full of all the reactions he had, and I think I got up to 37 of them. So I'm very much used to doing fever bath treatments. And what you do is you sit the person in the bath. You give them something to drink, so you're bringing their body core temperature up very, very high, and his body core temperature is going up sky high. He's getting to 40 degrees easy. Sometimes did you know that he even hit 42, which is incredible? How do you help somebody? And I know I've got the record there. So what you do is you must keep their head chilled and cold. You could not do this unless you had that cold on the head. That's why I had these hot ice packs around the head. So I had them all around the head, sort of going everywhere to keep the whole head area cold. And his body core temperature was brought up quite hot. And after you bring them up, you hold them for about 20 minutes at that temperature, and then you let them gradually come down. And after you come down, then you let them finish off with a cold or warm tepid shower. Now, what does that do to a person? It absolutely, it kills cancer cells. It does so many wonderful things. I'll just read you a statement here. A leading authority on cancer treatment, Vera de Winter, PhD, said, from application of such elevated heat, the average remission rate for cancer with advanced stages is 80%. There is no known other treatment modality known with such a high remission rate. And this is the fever bath. And this speed and effectiveness of the white blood cells, the T cells, the B cells and macrophages double with every increased degree above the body's normal temperature. So what we're doing is we're getting their body you're getting an increased amount of white blood cells circulating in your body. And these are circulating with much more efficiency. They are actually seeking out and destroying toxins, pollutants, and metabolic wastes that are stored within the body. And you know, Peter did these. Now, for all his life that I knew him, and we were married 46 years, he had always had psoriasis. When I started doing these fever baths on him, did you know that his psoriasis completely went away? I couldn't believe it. Now, another one too, even for psoriasis, is just a little bit easier than this, because there's a lot of rigmarole in this. You've got to know what you're doing, is using Vicks Vapor Rub. That can help some people, because Vicks Vapor Rub was very helpful for Peter too, just to rub that over any psoriasis. I don't know what it is, but it just helped. That's just something that I've just remembered. But getting back to the fever bath, this here is, I actually liked doing it in Fahrenheit, 96, 98, 100, 102. But you look at 141 is 105, 42 is 107. You can't get people's temperature up that high. No way. It would regularly go to 104. The only time it didn't go that high was one day when we forgot. We had a late lunch. Now, normally we would eat lunch at, say like when we eat it today. But one day we were busy. We were doing some voluntary work at the op shop, and we finished and we thought, oh, we'll have lunch when we got home. And then we decided to do a fever bath that night. And I was wondering, Peter, why aren't things happening? And then as he was in the bath, he says, oh, I had a late lunch. And I knew that was the reaction. Just remember, because what happens when you're having a late lunch, your blood is diverted to digesting the food. And so it's busy. It's got no time to do everything else it's got to be doing with the cleansing. So with the fever baths, your cancer cells are eliminated, increases oxygenation of the tissue, it stimulates blood and lymph circulation, increases the production of white blood cells, stimulates T cells, B cells and macrophages. And I'm going to put a challenge out to you. Learn to do hydrotherapy now and become confident while you have time. You may need to use the information under extreme conditions. Remember I said water treatments wisely and skillfully given may be the means of saving many lives. We need to know this. Medical missionary workers, we need to know this. Now, I've only given you the very basics. I had to learn it the hard way. But you've got to start practicing what you have learned. Even there, it's sort of like I've only just touched on things with you, but it's given you an appetite to want to delve into more. So that's my aim. I mean, I'd love you to be able to show you how to do fermentations, but look, in reality, I know people, they just have to be wanting to do it and wanting to learn it, because otherwise they'll go home and they'll forget about it. They won't do it. They won't practice it. I've seen this time and time again. And that's just the whole, I suppose, that's like the underlying theme of all my talks, is we've got to use what you're learning. Otherwise it just you'll forget it. Yeah. So that's brought us to an end of our class here this afternoon. Is there any questions before I finish up? Just hold on, we got a microphone.
Who wants a microphone? Sorry.
We lost all our microphone carriers.
Thanks, Rob. I was just wondering if you said do not eat just before and just after. Is there a set, 2 to 3 hours is best, or an hour, or what?
I would say if I was doing it, we would do, especially the fever bath. That's pretty dramatic, because it would be really full on. We would have lunch at lunchtime, and then we wouldn't eat anything, and we'd do it every night. Okay, so we did the fever bath, we would always do the fever bath maybe about 7 o'clock at night. It would take probably an hour, and then Peter would get up and he would go straight to bed. That's the proper treatment. After you finish, you need to go to bed and you need to have a sleep. And generally what would happen in the bath, in the bed, he would sweat, which was a good sign. That's some of the reactions that you have from it. But I wouldn't, for that one, it's pretty full on. But for a wet sheet wrap, I would maybe, if I was doing a wet sheet wrap, maybe I have breakfast, I would do it mid-morning, within maybe 2 or 3 hours. It's, 3 hours, it's not going to worry you too much, or any of these others. But I definitely would be wary, because I knew the moment we realised, why aren't we getting the reaction? His temperature wouldn't go up. And I knew, and I said, that's what it is. And so, little things you learned along the way just was good to understand. Now, there is 2 ways you can do a fever bath, because I've done a fever bath just using water, which I was doing this time, or you can put herbs in the fever bath, which means you're putting in a combination of ginger, mustard, and cayenne, and you're tying that up in like a handkerchief, and you're putting a half a cup of each of those herbs in, and you use that as like a giant tea bag, but you throw that in the bathtub, and you let that soak out. Now, as the person's sitting in there, they are getting so hot. They're getting hotter than even the temperature of the water. They think they are. Now, I know that works well, but there is the downside of it is when you're working with men, when you're doing this, to do this, it is so hot on a men's genitals that they can't handle it. You have to coat the men's genitals with Vaseline every time you do it. Now, if you do that, it becomes pretty icky to wash all this Vaseline off every time you're doing it. And so I just weighed it around, and I thought, well, we were getting a good response just using the water one, and I was actually being somebody who was trained in it was teaching me, and he was going through it really thoroughly with me, and how he'd done it on different patients, and he'd done it in a number of clinics all around the world, and how he'd done it on his own father. And he told me, he said, I've only used water. And that gave me confidence. I thought to myself, I'm not going to put Peter through the added discomfort of every time you do a fever bath to wash all this Vaseline off your genitals, because it's not easily coming off. Okay, it's not. You might think it is, but it doesn't, because it just sticks to it. So, and also for some women, you need to also coat the woman's genitals. So it can be quite. Because it can burn very much, and if it burns on a men's genitals, they cannot handle it. They have to get out straight away. You cannot leave a man in when he's got that because it's so hot and intense. Remember, we've got cayenne, we've got mustard, we've got ginger burning, and so you can't leave it there. So that's the reason I didn't do the herbs in there as well. Any other questions? Well, there you go. Looks like you haven't got any more questions. That's all right. If you think of something later, we can talk about it. Okay, so we'll just leave that for a moment. Now we've got about an hour or so, or nearly an hour, and we will come back then when Sam gets here, and Okay, thank you.